Perfect. All right, y'all, thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Vicki Pace. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, a little bit about myself. I am one of the vice presidents at the Hartford in our claims organization, and I am also the vice chair of the board of directors for our United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut. So thank you again so much for joining us today, this afternoon, for the Tocqueville Society Town Hall. We're excited to have you all in attendance. As I shared for some of you that might have joined a little bit earlier, I've been looking forward to this all week long. Town halls like this afternoon's event are really intended to share information, but also equally as important to hear your thoughts on the issues that are affecting the well-being of families in our communities, not only families, but individuals and children, how the United Way, in partnership with community and business leaders and philanthropists like yourselves, are responding to the issues that we're facing, and how when we unite together, when we come together, we can create a community in which everyone has equal opportunity to succeed and thrive. So I'm looking forward to the discussion and the information that'll be shared today so that we can engage in a meaningful conversation about those things. Before we begin, though, I would like to quickly share some information about the United Way's Tocqueville Society, just for those of you that might not be familiar. The Tocqueville Society is comprised of individuals and couples who donate a gift of $10,000 or more annually through the community campaign, so significant contributions. The society is also dedicated to developing a stronger sense of community and connection among local I'm sorry, I always get tongue-tied on that word, philanthropists, offering network and engagement and educational opportunities for members. Last year, and I think this is just one of the statistics that really is just so telling and powerful. Our 63 Tocqueville Society members collectively contributed almost $1 million to the campaign. So that is extraordinary when you really think about it and the power of what that can do in our community. Tocqueville societies are also part of a national network that recognizes committed leaders for their philanthropic contributions. And as members of the national network, local members have the opportunity to engage with philanthropists across the country, of which there's about 24,000 Tocqueville Society members nationwide. So that's pretty powerful networking opportunity. So again, on behalf of our United Way and the board, I want to thank the Tocqueville Society members who are present for the generosity, compassion, commitment, frankly, that they show to the community in creating positive change for us all. We're grateful for those of you that are in attendance this afternoon, not only as Tocqueville Society members, but generally speaking for the talent and treasure that they so generously donate to the community. The gifts that are granted are helping to ensure that opportunities are available to every child to succeed in school and for every family to achieve financial security. And that's so wonderful. So thank you again so sincerely for that. So with that having been said, I would love to get our town hall started. A couple things to think about here as we engage in the conversation. Some of this might be very intuitive, but I just think a couple points worth highlighting here. Research shows that our earliest years of life can set the stage for physical development as well as mental health and academic success. And children thrive when they can participate in consistent, enriching learning experiences, eating healthy and having opportunities for active play, active engagement. And yet for many of our children in our community, these opportunities are out of reach. The research also shows that children who read proficiently by the start of fourth grade are more likely to graduate high school on time and prepare for college or career job success. Yet in United Way's priority communities, less than 70% of our students are reaching this critical milestone. And so when you think about that, that's meaningful. 70% of our students aren't reaching this critical milestone of reading proficiency by the fourth grade. Right. So as we engage in today's conversation, I think we'll hear more about ways that we can impact that. You'll hear more about the importance of early childhood brain development and how grade level literacy impacts future success both in school and life. We'll also hear about COVID's impact on learning and how local schools are planning to move forward beyond COVID, hopefully one day beyond COVID. And finally, you'll also have the opportunity to learn about the United Way's role as a partner in advancing early childhood and grade level literacy in our community. Just a couple things about today's town hall. We would like it to be interactive. So please, if you have a question or comments that you'd like to share, use the chat functionality. There's a chat box, should be on your bottom toolbar, depending on how you've orientated your screen, or simply raise your hand and we'll make sure that you're acknowledged. We are absolutely planning on having time for Q&A later in the town hall. Our hope is to conclude this promptly at 1 p.m. just to be respectful of everyone's times, given we know how much folks are actively monitoring between work and personal lives and all of that. So we want to make sure that this is a meaningful conversation, but we are respectful of time. So to kick off our event, I would like to now introduce our esteemed moderator, Ms. Paula Gilberto. For anyone who does not know Paula, she is the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut, our president. She's the president and CEO of our United Way. So with that, Paula.
Thank you so much, Vicki. Thank you not only for being the host today, but also for all of the ways in which you lead in terms of our board and so many other ways within Women United. So thank you. Just as a refresher, our mission as your local United Way is to bring together the right people and resources, all in the interests of the well-being of children and families in each of the communities we serve. And I want to stress that because the critical, importance here is all children and all families. Also want to affirm all of you as donors and as volunteers, when you are contributing to your local United Way, to this United Way, it is about ensuring that people are going to get jobs where they're able to earn a quality living, be financially secure and independent, to be healthy, and also to ensure that the most basic of needs, the emergency needs around food and shelter, are available to them if needed. And it's also critically important that you know that your investments go squarely and directly into supporting children's success. This is all linked together. As you know, children don't exist in a vacuum. Seniors don't exist in a vacuum. Parents don't exist in a vacuum. So our job is not only bringing all of this together, but doing it in a coordinated way so that everyone realizes the maximum benefit. In addition to all of this, just to know, we do our work in partnership with others, and that includes our local school system. So we're thrilled that Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez is with us today. And we also do it in partnership with other organizations, such as Connecticut Children's. So I'm thrilled that Dr. Jim Schmerling is with us as well. Together, we are putting our best efforts, our best staff resources, our best volunteer resources, and our financial resources all together in the interests of supporting children succeeding, but recognizing that those children are related to adults, to families, and to others. This is just one snippet, one slice of our system as to what we do in partnership with the public and private sector to ensure that all residents have the best opportunities for success. With this, I don't want to take any time away at all from our two esteemed colleagues. So I'm first going to introduce Dr. Jim Schmerling. After he gives a few remarks, then we're going to turn it over to Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez. And just for a moment of privilege here, so sorry, Kate and Kim, I'm going off script. The opportunity to partner with Dr. Schmerling, the opportunity to partner with Dr. Torres-Rodriguez have just been very significant opportunities for me personally and professionally. And I'm honored to have had this time with both of you. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Jim Schmerling first, our first presenter. Dr. Schmerling is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Connecticut Children's, which is the only hospital in our state that is solely dedicated to care of children. Jim, as young as he is, he started very early, has more than 4 decades of service in management roles in children's hospitals and has devoted his career to advocating for children and healthy communities, and is a national leader in this regard. He's a fellow with the American College of Health Care Executives. He's an adjunct faculty member in the hospital administration programs at the University of Alabama. And in addition to all of this, he recently joined the Board of Education for Hartford Public Schools. So talk about talent and commitment. Thank you so much, Jim. And I do want to note, Jim is the driving force and the visionary for bringing the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Hartford children. And I shared with him that even in retirement, I am going to link arms and we are going to bring Dolly Parton Imagination Library statewide. Jim, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Paula. Appreciate those kind words. And Vicki, thank you so much as well. And it's a privilege to share some time with Dr. Torres-Rodriguez as well. Can't wait to hear her remarks when I'm done. This is a topic that I'm extremely passionate about because I think it has a significant impact on children's health, well-being, and development. So we can go to the first slide. This will be the only clinical slide that I have, but I wanted to start just to give you an indication of how important literacy is for children and brain development. This is a picture of two different children who come from the same socioeconomic background, they're same age, same gender, and this is the number of conversational turns per hour. That's really the interactions, the verbal interactions between an adult and a child. And what this picture shows, this is a diffusion MRI, is that it's the strength of the connections that made between white matter and the pathways to the brain. This is how basically information travels from place to place in the brain. It's like an information highway. Increased activation in one area of the brain increases connectivity between that region and another, which suggests that the more turns there are, the more interaction, the more the brain works together. And this is critically important, and it starts at birth. These are images of children who are 4 years old, but this process starts at the age of birth, and the synapses that are connecting between the first 3 years of birth is really the most important time in child development. We can go to the next slide. This is the English version of what happens with literacy. It's how we install new software into brains. Next slide, please. Which leads me to Dolly Parton. When I first mentioned Dolly Parton, people's eyes either widen or they glaze and said, what in the heck does literacy have to do with Dolly Parton? She started a program in her own hometown in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for children born there because she knew her father was illiterate and she wanted children to grow up reading books. That is a program that took off across the country. I'll show you a timeline in just a second. When I was at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, I heard about this program. I approached her foundation and said, maybe we should do this for the entire state of Tennessee. And to her right, the gentleman in the blue tie is the governor of Tennessee, Phil Bredesen. And on the left is his successor, Governor Bill Haslam. Between the two, they were governors of the state of Tennessee for 16 years. Both supported Imagination Library. I went to the governor and said, if we can raise money across the state, will you match it? So that every child in the state from birth to the age of 5 will get a free book. And so that by the time they're 5, they'll have a library of 60 books. And I think he thought I was crazy and that what the heck, he could say yes, because it'll never happen. But we did, we raised money across the state matched it, and they've been doing that for 14 years. And I'll show you some of the results of some of that activity that's occurred in that period of time. She's been a champion for literacy, and this program is now international. On the next slide. This is sort of the timeline. She actually began this process in 1995. So it's 26 years old. In 2001, she had 27 affiliates in 11 different states. Now, these weren't statewide. They were programs in different cities, sort of like we're starting with Hartford and hoping to branch out in the United Way of Central Connecticut, because I know there are a lot of communities, and then eventually taking this statewide. But this is how it got started in the early days. 2003, they had distributed their 1 millionth free book. In 2011, they developed a program for the blind to create audio versions and Braille. In 2016, they celebrated their 1 millionth a month milestone. So this program continues to grow. And in 2020, we started and launched our program here in Hartford, Connecticut. We can go to the next slide. The next 2 slides are results that were conducted in Tennessee after a number of years when they start beginning to look at longitudinal results in academic performance. This first is a SAT achievement test. What they found here was that more of the Imagination Library participants earned a proficient or advanced score on their second grade reading achievement scale compared to the non-participants. The next slide looks at TCAP achievement tests. And this demonstrated that there were participants in the program had a proficient or advanced score on their third grade reading achievement scores compared to non-participants. So there's a significant, statistically significant change in the children's ability to read and to develop the skills. Next slide, please. Which brings me then to what's happening here in Hartford. We did launch our program. This is a partnership. Very, very grateful to United Way and Paula helped provide the leadership. This requires great coordination when we're signing children up for books and then doing a distribution and a number, as you may know, I know Dr. Torres-Rodriguez understands the transient nature of some families across the community and trying to keep up with where they are. And so there are a number of books that get distributed, that get returned, that have to be redistributed. So there's a lot of logistical coordination. And it takes a fair amount of money to get started. It's about, on average, about $30 per child per year. And that includes some of the administrative overhead to run this program. And the Imagination Library Foundation won't start a program until the money has been raised. They want to make sure that the community has a significant commitment. So we went to St. Francis Hospital and Hartford Hospital, where the vast majority of children who live in Hartford are born, and asked those two hospitals to make a contribution to get the program launched. Connecticut Children's matched the contribution, and United Way put in money. And we had the dollars then to launch the program. This is a picture of the press conference that we did in front of the hospital, where the mayor came and spoke, and we had an opportunity for all the organizations who were participating. And you may not appreciate this, but it's a real feat to get competing hospitals to stand next to each other, much less put money into the same program. And it speaks to the commitment that the hospital community has to helping children. We put the competitive nature aside and do what's in the best interest of children. Next slide. And so, Dr. Rodriguez, I'm sorry, this may overlap one of your slides, but I wanted to share that during COVID, as kids are starting to get back into school, enrollment has come down, and I've tried to highlight some of the communities that are served by this United Way. And you can see that there's a decline in most of these communities, but a significant percentage of the decline in enrollment is in pre-K. What that means is these children aren't going to be getting into school. They may not be exposed to books, to literacy, and some of those things we're talking about in terms of brain development may be delayed. And so this has a huge impact. We want to get these kids back in school, but COVID is creating some additional barriers. All the more reason to have books being distributed to their homes. So they may not be able to access books or libraries in the school. They will have books, again, a new book every month for 5 years in their homes. Next slide. So far, and these are statistics that come from United Way, and I'm very proud of this. Since we began the program, in the city of Hartford, there have been almost 1,500 births during this period of time. We have 858 children who are actively getting books, 947. So this is a big percentage of children born in Hartford. And so far, and this is early in our beginning here, at beginning stages, we've distributed 5,000 books. So the program is starting to have a significant impact. And as we start doing longitudinal analyses and we start testing these children as they get into school in second, third grade, certainly by fourth, they should be reading, those who participate, I'm sure, be reading at grade level, if not surpassing that. And we'll start to see over time, graduations rates increase, school attendance increase. There are all kinds of wonderful things that happen when children start reading at a very early age. Next slide. I believe that might have been that was my last. I just want to make this last comment that reading is the great equalizer. When we're talking about children and the socioeconomic disparities that we have in our community, giving all these children the opportunity to read, to enhance their brain development those first few years, those first 5 years, gives them all a significant head start and can help them all be ready for school at the same level. We know there are book deserts in Hartford. There are homes that don't have any books. these book deserts where 65% of the homes have fewer than 100 books in the house completely. So this program, I think, will have a tremendous impact on children and their performance in school and their brain development. I tried to be brief, but I'll be available for the questions to that section. So that's my last slide.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it and committed to moving this forward. I next want to introduce another just fantastic colleague, and that's Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez, Superintendent of Hartford Public Schools, which is one of the largest urban districts in our state. Dr. Torres-Rodriguez was raised in Hartford, a proud graduate of Hartford Public High School. She's been an education leader in the greater Hartford area for over 2 decades. Boy, talk about someone who puts children first and who puts families first. Just a tremendous educator and an inspiration to Hartford children and Hartford families. I do want to note that Leslie serves currently on the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents Board of Directors, and is also on the Hartford Promise Board. She also co-chairs the City of Hartford Mayor's Cabinet for Young Children. It's been proud for me to be a member representing United Way, and she's also a member of the Governor's Workforce Council. And just want to highlight that because this is an educator who is committed not only to what happens with children and young people K through 12, but ensuring that they are on that path to secure a great job, which in turn is going to reap great benefits for that family and their children. So with that, Leslie, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for the introduction and for our long-term partnership. And of course, for the invitation to discuss such important topics like early childhood and literacy. And Dr. Schmerling, thank you for your partnership. And I think I'm going to walk away later quoting you. All kinds of wonderful things start happening when kids start reading. So that's a win for me for today. And if we can get the slide going. Thank you. And just a quick overview of my presentation. I'll share with you the context of this last school year and how it is that we in Hartford Public Schools are looking to move beyond COVID. And also, you know, we are grounded, as Paula referenced, we're grounded in, of course, students first, but doing that in partnership with our families and with our community. So I'd like to highlight also ways in which we partner with United Way that are very connected to our conversation here today around early literacy and what that means for long-term student success. And the next slide, if I could just give you a broad overview, right? This is our snapshot as to who it is that we serve and who we are at Hartford Public Schools. And as we look to, you know, this new school year, we do face great opportunities as well as some uncertainties. And we are, you know, fortunate that we've engaged our community and have a new strategic plan. But at a glance, our strategic plan will serve on behalf of nearly 18,000 students. We do have 39 schools, 18 of which are magnet schools. That means that we operate within a school ecosystem of choice. And, you know, that means that we welcome students from over, you know, a variety of towns. We have 85 languages spoken across our schools. And so just imagine how fortunate we are, right, to leverage that diversity. And we also serve students that have a higher level of need. And I just want to point out that, you know, with our diversity, we also serve students, as you can see, about 22% students, 22% that are students with learning exceptionalities, and also students that are multilingual English learners. And so, you know, that adds a layer of need for our students. So we do what we do in alignment with our mission with this, which is to make sure that each and every one, all of our students, have access to learning and the supports that they need so that they can succeed in school when they're with us, but also in life. And the vision, as Paula referenced, it is to graduate our students ready to transform our world and have access to meaningful lives after high school. And we do that with focus on 4 priorities: high quality teaching and learning for each and every one of our students. And, at the center of this conversation is the other priority, which is welcoming culture nurturing climates in our schools in partnership with family and community. And of course, tending to the business of our everyday work, which is making sure that we have skillful staff impacting our students every day and effective operations. And so to give you a glance as to some of the major learnings and the impact that the pandemic had, our students in our community have longstanding needs that certainly this pandemic exacerbated. The existing gaps deepened, and a new one between our in-person and our remote learners developed. It really was a challenge to provide both remote and in-person instruction most of the year last year. And our data showed that remote learning did not reach all students. Our data actually was further corroborated when the state recently released state level data. And I know that it will take us years to understand the full impact of the pandemic on student learning, on social and emotional skills, but we're getting an early sense of what has happened, in part because though we did prioritize in-person learning last year, a large portion of our students still primarily experienced remote learning, right? You see here, 59% of students started last year learning remotely. And, at the end of the school year, near the spring, 37% ended the year remotely. And after, making progress addressing chronic absenteeism, which is, in addition to early literacy, chronic absenteeism, attending school every day is a priority area for us. We had made progress before the pandemic, but the pandemic did exacerbate our attendance challenges. And 48% of our students were chronically absent last year. Chronic absenteeism is defined by when a student misses 10% or more of the school year. And you compare that to 24%, which is where we were in February of 2020 before the pandemic. So on average last year, 81% of our students were present either remotely or in person. It is all connected to what Dr. Schmerling talked about, right? Having access to literacy, early literacy. And as expected, the pandemic did interrupt, the learning process. Learning challenges were most significant for students that are historically marginalized. When we think about our students that have housing, they have unstable housing, that students that have additional needs and need special education supports. So those are the major ways in which the pandemic impacted our students. And so in our next slide, I want to just review that. While we were and still are to some degree within the crisis of a pandemic, we saw that as an opportunity to revisit our strategic plan. And yes, COVID presented all of the operational challenges, right? Shifting back and forth with the modalities, but it also required a deeper level of engagement and partnership with our families and with our caregivers. So we did leverage the opportunity to really hone in and really listen at a deeper and a closer level as to what our families and stakeholders thought we should be prioritizing within this next strategic plan. So we decided to gather feedback early on through the fall and throughout the year to do 2 things: to, yes, inform the strategic plan, but also to connect the feedback and the voices from our community to our application for relief funding efforts that we were receiving. And so this is a glance here at some of the feedback. We have 4 major goals, as you can see here: graduation, improving graduation rates, grade 3 literacy, which is a key milestone for us, 8th grade math, and chronic absenteeism. And I wanted just to share that when we did survey our community, we saw a strong emphasis on improving third grade literacy and chronic absenteeism across all of our stakeholders, from families to staff to our partners to our students. We also wanted to know from our families what they thought needed to be true for their child to be successful over the next 3 years. So to the left there, you can see a word cloud of responses that we did receive from our families, and really they illuminated 5 major themes that we heard. One is ensuring that each and one of our students has high quality teachers in every classroom, ensuring that there are safe and positive learning environments, especially as parents were thinking about having their children return to school. And then also extracurricular enrichment and enrichment activities to get at that social emotional support, and supporting each student's individual unique needs. And lastly, a 5th theme that we heard was around staffing in terms of culturally responsive staff, so that our students could see staff that represent and can connect with them in different ways. So after all of the voices and leveraging the data points that we were monitoring, we did identify what we call 4 must-win areas. And they informed how we allocated the relief funding. And I won't go into all of the details, but essentially is expanding learning time and targeted support opportunities inside of the school day, but also outside of the school day. Increasing support for teachers and school leaders. We heard Dr. Schmerling talk about early literacy, and one of the pieces that we're focusing on in terms of building capacity in our adults is around the science of reading, knowing that pre-service education programs don't necessarily focus in the science of reading unless you're going to school to be a reading specialist. And so what an opportunity with the added relief funding to build capacity. So that means all of our kinder through 3rd grade teachers across all of our schools will be trained. It's a 2-year training in the science of reading. Another must win is making sure that we connect every student to an adult advocate, and also expanding wellness supports, because we know that the social, emotional, mental health, and wellness needs have increased. And then lastly, that focus on cultivating a sustainable teacher pipeline. We know that not only in Connecticut, but nationally, we are experiencing a shortage of teachers in very key areas, such as special education. And so now I want to just highlight the partnership, which is, at the center, as you can see, of our priorities. United Way, for example, the Readers and the Velo program implemented in Hartford Public Schools to support literacy, especially during the pandemic, in response. And I recall the conversation with Paula when Paula, you reached out and you said, how can we do it differently? We know that we want to continue to have allow students to have the access. And before you know it, the program was implemented and students were receiving that virtual one-to-one reading session from home or school on their individual devices. And the purpose was to keep students on track with their reading goals and to meet health and safety procedures, right, that we were implementing in our schools. And the Velo's new approach works because the partners work in tandem. They work together in support of our students. We know that volunteers reading with kids one-to-one, it works. And it creates relationships, it fosters relationships and lasting change in our communities. And just so that we can look at some key data points here, right? We do have 7 schools participating in the program. 87 students and 60 volunteers participated, and that's just in February, from February to June last year, right? Great impact. 565 reading sessions, totaling 17,000 minutes of reading. And of those students participating, 70% showed improvement and 54 reached proficiency. So we couple these outcomes with the outcomes that Dr. Schmerling talked about, right? With the imagination library, think about the impact that we can have long-term. You see here just a few data points also around the imagination library, right? 858, these are data points that, Dr. Schmerling referenced. And I know that we're going to go to a discussion, but I do just want to reference that, the partnership with United Way also includes our campaign for grade level reading, which is one of my favorite times of year nationally, right? The campaign is a partnership between schools, our cities, our business, our CBOs, our community-based organizations, again, ensuring that students are reading on grade level by grade 3, because it is that one of those gatekeeper predictors on students staying on track through high school to graduate on time.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Truly appreciate this. And thank you both for highlighting the ways in which we partner. We are a firm believer, it's core to our mission, that we accomplish more together than what any of us as individuals or as organizations can ever do alone. So this is a wonderful example of a public-private partnership. I do want to, and I know we're going to have an opportunity, so want our guests to be thinking about questions that they have for Leslie, for Jim, and to please use the chat box for that. But until that gets populated with questions from our guests, you've covered so much and it's been so rich. I also want to just ask you both another facet of what we have heard a lot about from our own employees who are parents and from so many of our community partners. And that has to do with increases in childhood trauma and what that experience is like, for children, pandemic related, for families. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing what you're seeing and what you feel that all of us, right, as individuals and representatives of organizations should know and what we can do.
I could share some of the early things that we're seeing. We are experiencing some hesitancy from our families in sending students back to school. And some of that is also related to the families that kept students out all year, right? So this is new to them. Coming back in person is new. And so we're trying to address that on a one-to-one basis and really informing our families as to what to expect. The other piece that we're seeing is more around the social aspect. We know that, students, are new in some degrees. We had students that, have never, this is the first time, or kindergartners, for example, didn't come into school. This is the first time that they're coming in, for example, as a first grader. And at the older grades, we do see early review of our attendance data. Ninth grade, for example, which was a hard, group for us to try to problem solve around, is one of the grades that had the lowest, for example, attendance in these last 2 days. And so we're monitoring that. Could it be related to, the trauma, the anxiety? I'm sure part of it is.
Okay.
I think what we're seeing at Connecticut Children's is the increase in behavioral and mental health disorders. We've had children as young as 7 that have tried to commit suicide who've ended up in our emergency department. Typically, pre-COVID, we would see maybe 15 or 20 children a day, a mental health or behavioral health diagnosis. During this last year, we were averaging over 40. This summer, it's dropped down into the teens, but as they go back to school and or don't go back to school, we're expecting this to come back up to the 30s and 40s again. These are children on a daily basis, and it's manifesting itself in really 2 specific areas. One, in eating disorders. There's some children who, because they're home, are sitting and eating potato chips and very unhealthy snacks most of the day and getting a lot of weight. So we're seeing significant obesity. And on the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing a lot of children who've lost weight and are putting themselves into cardiac myopathies and different kinds of medical diagnoses because they're not getting the nutrition they need. Extremes. And then we're seeing an increase in suicide attempts. And these are scary, and it's real. These children, because of the social isolation, sometimes the stress the parents are going through, whether they've lost jobs, the stress of being at home all day with children. Have great appreciation for teachers and what they do when you're home all day with these kids. And so the combination of all of this, I think, is putting significant mental health stress on these kids. And we'll see it manifested, I think, as they go back to school. The teachers will have to deal with some of these behavioral disorders. And I think it's important then that the partnerships that the school systems have with other providers, with Connecticut Children's, with the various agencies across the state to help in dealing with these kids is going to be really important. I might also mention, just as a quick unpaid commercial, on our website, we have posted some activities that parents can do with their children so that they're not sitting idle, that their brains are engaged. There are some activities that they can be doing that are healthy, supporting them. There are actually TV shows that are, rather than just looking at cartoons, that are educational in nature, that are healthier. And so we've made some recommendations for families on how they can help their children while at home. So if you can get the word out, it's free, and we have experts who can help reach out if parents want to ask questions.
You would think 18 months into the pandemic, I would remember to always unmute myself. So apologies. So thank you both. And just before I turn it over to Kim Reeves, just want to, first of all, again, encourage our guests, use the chat box. You can also raise the virtual hand. We're going to continue with question and answers. We want to make sure that we're taking full advantage of Leslie and Jim's time because they're so gracious in giving it. But I just want to give you each an opportunity. Is there anything else you would like to say in closing your comments before we open it up?
I would just say thank you to United Way, to your donors. This is a team sport. It takes all of us to manage this crisis and to keep our children healthy and performing in school. As you know, hopefully we'll increase the attendance in school, we'll increase the graduation rates. I think we have a great opportunity and tremendous potential and great leadership in it. This partnership that our respective organizations have with United Way are invaluable. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Leslie, any last comment?
Yeah, so first I thank you for inviting me, but you know, I do want to express gratitude to our educators and to our families as well, right? We know that, you know, the last 18 years have been significantly challenging, and, you know, there are still some uncertainties that might lie ahead. But, you know, our students do exist within a larger ecosystem, as it was shared earlier. And so there is no way that we in the school system can do this work alone. And we each interact with our families and children in different ways, which is why it's so important for us to cohere our efforts in service of them. So thank you so much for, you know, lifting all of these conversations.
It's great. Thank you, Leslie. Vicki, I see you have your hand up.
I do. It's going to sound like a simple question, but I suspect it's complex, right? What can volunteers do to help, in addition to, you know, reading and maybe financial contributions to the Imagination Library? It strikes me, you know, there was a slide, Dr. Torres-Rodriguez, that you'd put up that, you know, talked about the priorities you were establishing, right, and the 4 key areas. And both of the comments on, you know, either side of the slide talked about just the extraordinary interconnectedness of all 4 of the highlighted areas, right? And so I sit here and I say to myself, how as volunteers can we help? What can we do? How do we increase the penetration of the Imagination Library? I firmly believe in reading. I'm a lifelong reader, love it. And, you know, just personally kind of always seen the connection to how it helps in so many different facets of your life beyond just education. So how do people help? What more can we do? I didn't hear an affirmative we need help with in the comments.
I will start with, so our students can never have enough books. I will always say that. So let's keep working on that. The other piece is one thing we heard directly from students, especially at the older grades, they wanted more opportunities for real project-based experience. So internships, job shadowing, understanding what the world of work is. And so while that might not be long-term, volunteer opportunities, it might just be guest speakers and presentations, which now we can do virtually. So there's just two examples.
Thank you, Leslie.
I spent 11 years in Memphis, Tennessee. That at the time had the 14th largest school system in the country, and it's probably 92% African American. And so there were a number of socioeconomic challenges, and there was a very effective program that they started with the private sector, with organizations volunteering and adopting schools. And so whether it was providing volunteers for reading or helping teachers buy supplies for the classroom, there were a whole host of things, but the private sector really got engaged and actually adopted schools and spent time. They had leadership from their organization, spend time with the teachers and with the principal to understand what's going on a day-to-day basis. That might be something for us to consider here in Connecticut. I thought it was a very effective program.
It's great. Thank you, Jim. I just want to call attention to a comment that Catherine Ramirez has made in the chat function. And excuse me, I met Catherine close to 5-6 years ago when she was very active with our Emerging Leaders Society. I remember distinctly. Great meeting you facilitated, Catherine. And just to note, Connecticut Children's Center for Care Coordination can absolutely assist families as they navigate through this challenging time. And she's given her email address, so please take advantage of that. I am going to now turn this over to Kim Reeves. Kim is our Director of Leadership Giving. And thank you, Kim, for spearheading today's event.
Thank you, Paula. I don't know if anybody has any additional questions. I actually dropped off for a while because I had a computer issue. Paul, I see that you have a question.
Hi, yeah, thanks. First off, I want to just thank everybody. This is, I think, the third town hall I've attended, and I always appreciate the information and the fact that you're always providing sort of the data and the science behind the initiatives. And I personally really love to see that and appreciate it. So thank you. It's great hearing firsthand from the presenters today. The question is, I listened to the Imagination Library and also the data around one-on-one mentorship. And I wonder how much of that is participants voluntarily sort of seeking out the resources that are available versus children who are particularly at need being nominated or sort of brought in. I know that if I gave a book to each of my 3 kids, one of them would devour it. One of them might look at the pictures, and the other one might use it as a Frisbee, right? I mean, it's not.
Oops.
Whoa.
Oops.
I think we lost Paul, but I'm sure he's going to dial back in.
Yeah, I think while we wait to see if Paul gets back in, which is unfortunate. Does anybody else have any other questions before I proceed? Oh, he's trying to get back in, so I'll let him in. But anybody else have any questions? Paul, have you made it back in yet? Okay. Okay, if nobody has any more questions, and if Paul gets back on the line, we'll go ahead and we'll reach out to him. Oh,
yeah, hey, sorry about that. I am back on audio. Sorry, my computer decided to shut down on me. But I think you understood the question. I'm just trying to understand whether there are, in addition to the making availability of those resources, there's also an effort to proactively bring in the kids that are most needing of it.
One of the reasons we started in Hartford is because those are probably the most in need in the state. So I agree with you. The nice thing about Imagination Library is it's for all kids. It's not, we don't differentiate based on socioeconomic status. What I found in Tennessee was that those families like my own, when they received books for free, we made a donation back to United Way to support other families who may not have resources. It actually became a big fundraiser, unsolicited, because other families wanted to support it and felt guilty taking free books and not doing it, paying for them. But it really is for all children, and that's why we call it the Great Equalizer. All kids start with the same level of books. The books are selected by experts, and they can start the same way. But we did begin in Hartford because we felt like, in terms of socioeconomic need, and we saw this with COVID, the children or families who were most in danger of being admitted into the hospital and in danger of death were those who are coming from poor families. So Hartford, I think, is a good start. We do need to take this statewide, though. I think we want to do this. It'd be nice to be only the second or third state in the country that gives books to every single child from 0 to 5.
I can also expand, Paul. I appreciate your question, because we in Hartford Public Schools do take what we call an equity approach to our responses to interventions. And so when we think about students that need additional support with their literacy, we do identify those students that are at the top of the tiers, right? Students that we know the instruction that's already provided isn't quite allowing them yet to meet success, right? So that means the added levels of support. So when we think about smaller class size, we prioritize schools that are within communities that have a higher level of need, or classrooms that have higher numbers of students that have not reached proficiency in their literacy. So we do take a very individualized approach to addressing the need and redirecting, if you will, additional resources.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. With that, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. But of course, if you have any questions or whatever, I will be sending out the recording to all of you. So you'll have the opportunity to listen to it again. And please let me know if you have any questions, and I can try to reach out and get answers for you. But with that, I just wanted to close by thanking Dr. Schmerling and Dr. Torres-Rodriguez for your presentation today. I also want to thank you, Paula, for moderating this afternoon's discussion, as well as thank you, Vicki, for launching today's town hall. I just wanted to let all of you know, if you don't know already, fall marks the start of United Way's annual community campaign. And before we conclude today's event, I would like to ask you to support United Way's work with a donation to the annual campaign, either through your company's campaign or making a gift directly to United Way. If you are a Tocqueville Society member, I respectfully ask that you please consider renewing your membership in the society by making a donation of $10,000 or more to the campaign. We're currently building a year-round calendar of exclusive events, forums, communications that Tocqueville Society members will have the opportunity to take advantage of. We also remember that members of the local society automatically become members of United Way Worldwide's Tocqueville United, which is comprised of philanthropic leaders from throughout the United Way network. If you're not currently a member of the Tocqueville Society or interested in learning more about the recognition of benefits associated with membership, please contact me. And if you're unable to donate at the Tocqueville Society level, please know that we are grateful for all donations, regardless of size. So with that, I would like to say an unrestricted gift to United Way will have the greatest impact in that it allows our organization to invest your dollars where the needs are the greatest in the focus areas of youth success, family financial security, access to health, and basic needs. You can support the work you heard about today by directing your funds specifically to youth success, or sponsoring or making an investment in our United Way We Read initiative. For those of you who don't know what United We Read is, it's a comprehensive initiative that focuses on 3 primary areas. That's early childhood education, grade level reading, and out of school time programs. We focus on early childhood education by working with partners to provide increased access to quality programs for children ages birth to 5 that help ensure children meet critical developmental milestones while also increasing their early literacy skills, and by bringing Dolly Parton's Imagination Library to our community. We focus on grade level reading by bringing together volunteers to read weekly with students, partnering with local workplaces and volunteers to bridge the digital gap, and convening community partners through the Hartford campaign for grade level reading to align efforts that support school readiness, attendance, and summer learning opportunities. Finally, we focus on out of school time programs by investing in quality before and after school and summer enrichment programs that provide critical support to children to ensure academic success. You can support this comprehensive approach to addressing early child development and early childhood and grade level literacy by volunteering your time, as well as donating your dollars to the initiative. If you wish to learn more about United We Read, please feel free to contact me. Finally, I want to let you know about United Way, to let you know that United Way has a number of events this fall that may be of interest to you. A schedule of events should be on your screen. You may have already received information via email about some of the events occurring this month and how to register. A hard copy postcard with a listing of September events is also being sent via the US Postal Service. All the events listed provide opportunities to live united. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or want additional information. So again, I want to thank Dr. Schmerling and Dr. Rodriguez for your presentations and the discussion today. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Vicki. And thank you all of you who are here today, our guests this afternoon, as well as our generous donors. This concludes today's Tocqueville Society Town Hall, and I hope you all enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much.